Today's terrible price-to-performance ratio is brought to you by Squarespace. But more on that in a bit. Okay, I am so excited for today's build. It's been a long time in the making. For the past year, I've been slowly amassing a big old box full of upgrades that I'm pretty sure are going to work in our obscure goofball 20th anniversary Macintosh. I'm talking SATA controller card, SSD, maxed out memory, and a very obscure processor upgrade. We're going to turn the weirdest Mac of the 1990s into an absolute powerhouse. So stay tuned. And if you enjoy turning back the clock to a simpler time in computing and then hot-rodding the ever-loving crap out of it, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. We spare no expense turning e-waste into e-wonderful, so it's definitely worth sticking around. In last week's video about this rare example of Apple's late 90s descent into madness, we restored this 20th anniversary Macintosh to all of its 1997 glory. Well, we took some liberties, like way cooler speaker cloth to replace the deteriorated original, and of course the CD-ROM drive still doesn't work because of that stupid plastic ribbon cable. But other than that, it's beautiful, and mostly fully functional. If you want to hear the full backstory on this hard-to-find Apple flop, check out the previous video right here. But we won't stand for just fully functional around here, which is why for the past year or so, I've been slowly researching and hunting down upgrades that I think are going to work fine in this TAM here. You see, I've had this monster for probably close to a year now, and since then, as I've been slowly accumulating cool stuff, I've been surreptitiously testing it in other Macs before putting it into the TAM. Sometimes in other videos here, like this Sonnet G3 400 megahertz. We actually tested this out in a UMax SuperMac Mac clone a couple weeks ago. Check that video out right here. And yeah, it worked great in there, so it should work great in the very similar architectured 20th anniversary Mac. So I'm really excited about this build today because it's the first time in a long time where I'm pretty sure all of these upgrades are gonna just work. Oh no, I just jinxed it. But before we dig into this box of upgrade fun, a quick word about today's sponsor, Squarespace. Create a fast, beautiful, and rich web experience for your business or brand using Squarespace's powerful all-in-one platform. It's really easy to get started. Like, say I wanted to build a website all about the secret genius of Johnny Ive and his wonderful 20th anniversary Mac. Not only could I build it in minutes with Squarespace, but it would be well-designed, responsive, and mobile-friendly. There's a ton of beautiful templates that I could choose to start from. And from there, it's simple to build a great looking site that's also fast, responsive, and works great on mobile devices. With Squarespace's extensive built-in toolset, I can also optimize for SEO, manage a mailing list, check my analytics, and much more, all geared towards managing your entire web presence. So check out squarespace.com/actionretro today for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use code ActionRetro to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. All right, so let's talk about these upgrades because, the TAM isn't exactly conducive to a ton of upgrades because, well, it's quite thin. So how are we going to fit all of these upgrades in here? Well, great question. Come in closer and let me show you. This back comes right off, exposing a whole host of upgradability. A PCI slot, a COM slot 2, your memory, your hard drive, a goofy little fan here, all the stuff that you'd want. But how on earth could a PCI card fit in this card slot here? Well, there's an app for that. And by app, I mean an Apple branded PCI riser card that puts your PCI card down the back like this, mounted upside down and vertically. But there's still not enough room to put this back piece on here. So there's another app for that. And by app, of course, I mean Apple Expanded Back Panel, which, provides more than enough clearance at the cost of a little bit of girth, but on the back of the machine where you'd never see it. And yeah, I'd much rather have expandability than pure slim design. But this Ethernet card is kind of stupid. Instead, we want to have our SATA controller card. So that's one card in here, and if we want to have Ethernet as well, we can also use a COM slot card in this COM slot adapter that goes over top and around the PCI card. So that's kind of cool. But still, I want to see if we can fit even more stuff in here. So I'm really curious. I found this 2-slot PCI riser card that's from a different Mac. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that this would work in here just fine. Okay, so before we actually mess around with this awesome G3 upgrade, I want to do a fresh install of macOS 9 using the SATA controller card with a SATA SSD to make sure that all of that's working, and also to give us a good baseline to take benchmarks on so we can see a before and after on the performance gain from this upgrade. Okay, so we have our SATA controller card here mounted, and yeah, we're going to need to connect something to it. So I've got a SATA cable here. And of course we need to provide power to whatever SATA device. And yeah, it's not like the TAM has SATA power connectors built in, so I have an idea, and bear with me, it's a little bit cursed. What better SATA device to test this thing with than the super drive out of a Mac Pro? Yeah, in case we need to burn any DVDs on our TAM. Now for power, I've got some power connectors here with SATA to Molex, and there's a Molex connector in here for the CD-ROM drive. But if this doesn't work, I don't want to just tear apart this whole thing again for no reason. So we are going to power the drive externally. Let's turn this on here. Oh yeah. A 20th anniversary Macintosh with a super drive out of a Mac Pro on internal SATA powered externally. And I'll just give this a burned copy of the TAM restore disk to see if this works. I hear it spinning up in there. Look, it worked. There it is. A Mac Pro Super Drive running over SATA connected to a TAM, and it works apparently just fine. Command E to eject it. Works just fine. So we actually have a bunch of options for new internal hard drive to replace this old spinning disk on IDE. And all of my options are probably equally ridiculous. Well, we're going to use a SATA SSD here, brand new. We can, of course, use a SATA to IDE adapter. And I got this very little one that would allow this to kind of fit in the same slot there that the original hard drive was mounted in and still have this adapter. Option number 2, of course, is to plug this in to the other port on the SATA controller card. Plug it into power here. And then I think what I want to do is just run benchmarks hooked up to the SATA controller and hooked up to the SATA adapter and see if there really is a big difference in speed. And whichever way is fastest, and well, assuming they both work, that's the one we'll keep. All right, we are booted off the installer from the super drive, and let's see if we can find and then format the SSD. And there it is. Look, not initialized over SCSI, which is the SATA card. Let's initialize it. Okay, different idea. I've booted into the Power Computing boot CD so I can use hard disk toolkit to format that drive instead of the Apple original utility, because this should be able to format just about anything, whereas the Apple utility is looking for Apple specific drives and probably has no idea what to do with a SATA controller card. All right, let's try to install macOS 9.1. Hard drive toolkit for the win. Okay, so I want to mount this where the original hard drive went. And yeah, I have this a little bit longer SATA to Molex adapter that I'd like to run from the CD-ROM drive in there out through the back of the case, hopefully just using an existing hole. But I think we're going to have to crack this whole thing back open again to do it. Okay, so here's the guts of the TAM, and in the last video, it was pretty funny how many of you commented kind of how janky this was, all taped together from the factory and kind of woven cables everywhere. Did I mention that they rushed this to market in the 90s? Because they certainly did. Anyway, our power cable for the CD-ROM drive is down here, and since the cable inside the drive is broken, yeah, we don't really need that right now. Okay, so what I've done is threaded a little extension through. So here is the original Molex, and I've just kind of wired it through here so it comes out the front with a Molex connector that we can just connect our little SATA power splitter to. And that way there's enough length if we want to run that external DVD-ROM drive and also run our hard drive. Okay, so what I want to do now is benchmark the SSD on a SATA to IDE connector versus running it off of our SATA controller card. So I'm going to first hook this up to the old IDE connector, and we'll take a first benchmark here, I'll take a second benchmark here, and then I'll jump cut to the results. Well, as is probably no surprise to anyone, the dedicated SATA card is not only much faster than the built-in IDE, but it is comically faster. All right, well, that answers that question. SATA controller card it is. Okay, and on the back here, I have the SATA SSD all mounted up and powered, and we're going to use the dual SATA riser card. And on this card, we're going to use a USB 1.1 card, which this TAM is very picky about USB cards, and I think this is the only one that will definitely work because it's SIIG. And then I took the front panel off of the SATA controller card because we don't need a blank front panel hanging around, and yeah, we have pretty limited space inside the machine. Connect it up. Power is connected. And for fan, I'm going a little bit of a different direction. I've taken out this weird little fan here, and we're putting in, of course, a Noctua on double-sided tape for now to blow right down on that spot. And yeah, I know it's pretty silly double-sided taping this to the USB card, but hey, pray I don't get any sillier. Actually, if future upgrades pan out for this machine, I may just use this gigantic, ridiculous fan. And how will we know that the USB card works? Well, Apple Pro Mouse, of course, in all of its lasery glory. All right, booting the TAM with our mouse installed and our dual PCI riser card, and yeah, we'll see if this stuff works. Mouse is not on yet, but it hasn't loaded the USB driver yet. As soon as it does, this should come on. Ah, look, there it is. It's red. Haha. USB on the TAM. All right, we're booted up and everything seems to be fine. I'm going to take some pre-G3 processor benchmarks, and yeah. And then it's time for the final boss, installing this beautiful Sonnet G3 400 with 512K of cache. Okay, so this is a pretty weird upgrade. If you've seen the UMAX video, you already know, but they called this the G3 upgrade for Upgrade Challenged Macs, because this doesn't actually replace the processor, it replaces the cache card, which is right here. And then this bypasses the processor that's on the board, and we'll have to install its extension as well. Yeah, but that's it. I am probably going to do this. I'll just have to design some sort of 3D printed bracket. Okay, so to get that processor upgrade working, we just have to install its extension and restart. Yes, there it is. Crescendo G3, it's working. G3 Upgraded TAM. Let's check out System Profiler. Oh my God, look at that. Go away, network time error. 400 megahertz PowerPC G3 in our 20th anniversary Macintosh. And I've also upgraded the memory to that maximum 128 while you weren't looking, and that's working just fine too, with a hard drive on SATA and a USB card using an Apple Pro mouse. Oh my God, this is the most ridiculous TAM. Let's take our benchmarks and we'll compare it to the ones I took before the upgrade. All right, well, with our G3 processor, we have more than doubled our performance, even though the clock speed isn't doubled, 250 versus 400. Just that G3, man, that is awesome. Look at that improvement. Let's have a little bit of 400 megahertz fun with some Carmageddon and our internal Mac Pro SuperDrive. It's still so funny. All right, here we go. Let's see if these upgrades were worth it. Oh, this sounds awesome. Hang on to your helmet. Oh, it works great. Awesome. Carmageddon on the TAM. Oh my God. Just because I have a good frames per second doesn't mean I have a good gaming sensibility. I haven't got a good hit in on anybody. Oh no! Well, that was fun while it lasted. Okay, so that'll do it for today's TAM-flavored shenanigans, and I am so excited for this machine. This is one of my all-time holy grail machines, and to think just how wild all of these upgrades are. G3 400 megahertz, SATA on a SATA controller card, USB, lovely black speakers, and of course an internal SuperDrive from a Mac Pro. Now there's still a lot of things that I'd like to do to this. For one, I'd like to see if I can finagle the guts of this SuperDrive into the spot where the original vertical CD-ROM drive went, but I think that'll take some real finagling because the mechanism to tell if a CD is inserted is totally different. And no spoilers yet, but I do have some other plans for this processor upgrade. I have no idea if it's going to come to fruition, so I won't say any more now, but make sure you're subscribed to the channel because, yeah, I think this TAM can be even more TAM-rific. But if you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more TAM shenanigans like this, please subscribe down below, and thank you very much for watching. And a special thanks to Camilla Noseda, Chris Allegretta, Chris Biggs, Chris Calderon, Chris Nelson, Cobalt Retrotech, Control-Alt-Reese, Daniel Hubbard, Dwight A. Spencer, Greg from Rutk Mods, Paul Spencer, Ryan, Scott Thompson, and Sutek, who are my highest tiered patrons and all of my Patreon supporters for helping to make these videos possible.